Let's begin with the next chapter in the series on NET physics, which is of circular motion. So circular motion, it is defined as when you have one or more bodies which are moving in a circular path. So they follow a circular path around some reference point. Then this kind of motion is said to be a circular motion. So it generally looks something like this, where you have a body over here and it's attached to, you can say it's attached to some string, and that string is making this body follow a circular path, and so it moves in this direction in this way with some velocity. Then that velocity is known as the angular velocity of this body, right? And so this is that reference point which is always at the center of the circle that this body will trace, right? So the body will trace a path, and that path will be a circular path, and hence we are calling it circular motion. Now suppose I take this line as a reference line, and the angle that this vector r is going to make with this reference line is angle theta, and hence for obvious reasons we also call circular motion as angular motion. Now this angle theta essentially describes what is called the angular displacement of this body. So it is defined as the angle that is swept by the radial line, which is the radius vector of your body performing a circular motion. And this angular displacement is measured from some, let's say, initial point to a final point. So for example, you're only concerned with what is happening from here to here, right? In that case, this is your initial point and this is your final point, and the angle theta is the angle that is swept from this point to this point. Now the angular displacement is measured in radians, and so we define pi radians as 180 degrees. So mathematically, a radian is defined by this relation, and it just means that 1 radian is actually the angle which is made by the arc at the center, right? And the length of the arc is the radius of the circle, which is r. Moving on, we can talk about angular velocity and angular acceleration from the definition of angular displacement. So angular velocity is telling you how quickly the angular displacement varies, right? So how fast the angular displacement is going to change, and hence it is defined as the time rate of change of angular displacement. So this is the mathematical description for angular velocity. Instantaneous angular velocity is defined as this thing over here. Now if I bring back this diagram that we just looked at above, why don't you think what would happen if the string suddenly breaks? What would happen at that point? Considering that the angular motion was in this direction, it was moving, the body is rotating in this direction about this center point. You can do a thought experiment where you just imagine that you have a string in your hand and you are making it go in a circular motion, and at that point your hand is the center of the circle, and then imagine what would happen if you suddenly cut that string off. You would not expect the ball to just fall down immediately, or even if you would expect something like that, what happens is as soon as you cut this string, because this object, it already had some velocity, right? It has angular velocity. It cannot immediately drop to zero. So what happens is that this object that is rotating, as soon as I cut the string off, it's going to go flying in a straight path. Now that path depends on what direction this object was moving. So in this case, the path would look something like this vector, and this vector is defined as the tangential velocity. As you can see that the path that it will take is the tangent to that point where the object lies on the circle. right? And so that's why this velocity is known as the tangential velocity, sometimes also referred to as linear velocity. And mathematically, the relationship between the linear velocity and the angular velocity is something like this, where the angular velocity will remain constant through this entire path that it's moving in this circle. However, the linear velocity or the tangential velocity can change. So if the length of the string increases, then the tangential velocity would increase. Which means if I want something to go flying off very fast, then all I have to do is increase the length of the string before I cut it. So all of this now allows me to think about the change in velocity. What if the velocity changes with time? So that would give rise to the angular acceleration. And what velocity are we talking about? Angular acceleration would correspond to the angular velocity. And hence the time rate of change of angular velocity is known as the angular acceleration. So how fast is my angular velocity going to change is determined with a quantity which is called the angular acceleration. And mathematically, the angular acceleration is represented with this alpha symbol, right? And it is equal to the change in angular velocity over change in the time it takes to change this angular velocity. Now I can also define tangential acceleration. If I look at this expression for the tangential velocity and I divide this with the time, change in time, I get something like this, right? But what is delta omega over delta t? Well, clearly it is the angular acceleration, and hence I can relate the linear acceleration to the angular acceleration with this expression over here, right? So again, as you would expect, the linear acceleration depends on the length of the string or the radius of the circle, right? Now if I have something that looks like this, here we can see in this first diagram, you can see that the angular velocity and the angular acceleration point in the same direction, which is upwards, right? And if something is moving in a circle due to these angular acceleration and angular velocity combination, then it would be speeding up. The speed is increasing, right? Because the acceleration is in the same direction as the velocity. So that acceleration would be working to increase this velocity, and hence the speed would increase. However, in this diagram, you can see that the angular velocity points in this direction. However, the angular acceleration points in the exact opposite direction. So this angular acceleration is trying its best to decrease the velocity, which is in this direction. And hence, if something was moving in a circle around this, it would be decelerating, or the speed would decrease. Now let's define a concept of a rigid body, and we need this because we need a body that does not deform or change its shape, and that's where this rigid body comes in. So what that essentially means is that a rigid body is a particular type of body, a special type of body, which will maintain a uniform distance between any two consecutive points, right? So we have 2 points, and the distance between these 2 points will remain constant when you apply a load to it. So that is what it means by that there would be no deformation or change in shape, if you think about it. So consider that this is my body and there are these 2 points. So I pick these 2 points for reference and I apply a force on this object. What happens is the distance between these 2 points, it will remain constant even if I apply this force on it. And if that's the case, then this body is said to be rigid body. If you think about a rubber, for example, that is not rigid, because if this were a rubber and if I were to apply force on it, it would kind of bend and change its shape, and the shape of this would not be same, and then that would basically mean that there has been some deformation in the shape of the object, and then the body would not be rigid. So I hope that clears the idea of a rigid body. So for example, consider that I am this human being and this is a wall, right? And if I observe this wall, for me this wall is completely rigid. So if you look at, if you think about this, look at the wall in front of you and you hit it with or you're just looking at it, it appears, so if you're pushing it or anything, the wall appears to be completely rigid. The distance between those 2 points, they are not changing for you as a human, because and that's why, because you're observing this wall at a large scale level, right? But think about this: if instead of a human you have this hammer and this hammer strikes the wall. Now the hammer itself is a very small tool, and for the hammer this wall is not rigid, because when the hammer is going to hit the wall at the small scale level, there will be these 2 points at a very small scale. There will be some change in distance between these 2 points at a very small scale, and so hence for this hammer the wall is not rigid. So I hope that clears this concept of how can a same thing be rigid for one observer while it is not rigid for this observer. With this, now let's talk about the idea of a centripetal force. So the idea of centripetal force is something like, it's something that is center seeking. So it seeks the center, and it's not really any particular type of force. What it really is, it is something that will prevent or keep your object from following a straight path. So it will try to bend the path of your object in a circular geometry. And it is just the centripetal force is actually, it is a resultant of all of these the forces which will act on your system when the system is in the state of circular motion. Removing this centripetal force from the system or a rotating object, the object will then continue to follow a straight line motion which is confined on the tangent in the circular path, as you can see over here, as we showed it with this vector v, tangential velocity vector. To talk about the centripetal acceleration, we need to make an assumption. So basically we assume that the speed of the object is constant throughout the motion, so that the tangential component of the velocity will not produce any acceleration. However, only the radial component will. And mathematically, I can write the acceleration vector as the sum of two components, a tangential component and the radial component. So we know what is force. We all know how can I write down an expression for force. We know expression, this one, F is equal to m times a. So if I have the centripetal acceleration, then if I put that over here, then that would give me centripetal force. So the expression for the centripetal force looks something like this, where we have this negative sign because the centripetal force is towards the center inside this circle, right? So it's towards the center, and hence we have a negative sign, and it's acting in the direction r hat. So this is the expression. I can write down this expression in another form as minus mr vector times omega, right? So the direction is absorbed into this r vector, or I can also write it as minus mv squared over r times the direction, which is r hat. So this is telling you about the direction of this force vector. Note that the work done by a centripetal force is 0, and the reason for that is simple, because our particle or this object is simply moving in a direction. That direction is perpendicular to the radial direction, right? So you can look at this angular, tangential velocity and the radius vector. So in circular motion, this is the case. And if this is the case, then remember what was work done. Work done was simply the force dot s. So in this case, what happens is that this dot product is going to be 0, right? And that if this dot product is 0, that means the work done by a centripetal force is 0. And the dot product is 0 simply because of the fact that the direction in which this object is moving is perpendicular to the radius vector. And if two vectors are perpendicular, then their dot product vanishes. Now let's discuss moment of inertia. So the moment of inertia is simply defined as a measure of hindrance which is offered by the rigid body against the angular motion. So something that is trying to work against angular motion when some torque is acting on your rigid body. And that thing is defined or termed as the moment of inertia. So if you have something that's rotating, and the harder it is to rotate that body or to make it perform angular motion, then the higher the moment of inertia that system would have. So here we have some regular bodies, and their moment of inertias are written with the name of those bodies as well. So you can pause this video, and you can have a good look at these moment of inertias, and these are the expressions with which we can calculate this moment of inertia for these bodies. So again, this expression, the moment of inertia, is telling you, for this, for example, consider this body, how hard it would be to perform an angular motion with this body in this direction about this axis. Similarly, this expression would tell you how hard would it be to perform rotation for this type of body around against this axis, right? So again, it is simply the measure of the hindrance which is offered by this rigid body against this angular motion, right?